Welcome to Ponderosa North for the love of Bonanza. We're going to start today's episode with a few quotes. I became an actor out of loneliness. I distinguished myself by flunking out of college 3 times. I give 1/10 of what I'm capable of and everybody thinks it's great. Working on Bonanza was, oh no, you're going to have to wait for that one. Yes, today we're talking about the mysterious, ultra-private, enigmatic Pernell Roberts. Born in Waycross, Georgia, May 18, 1928, to proud, loving parents, Pernell Alvin Roberts Sr. and Betty Minnie Roberts Morgan. Here he is as a young man in the South, baby pictures and high school pictures. So he was their world. He was an only child. So he spent his youth teaching Sunday school and singing at church, and eventually went to Waycross High School, where he played in the band and sang in the glee club and USO shows and played a little basketball. Eventually ended up at Georgia Tech, where he flunked out. So he entered the Marines for a couple of years, played in the band there, and then went back to school, went to the University of Maryland, where he flunked out twice. But that is where he caught the acting bug, and he ended up doing a lot of theater around Maryland and in Philadelphia and in Summerstock, and absolutely loved Shakespeare. There he is in Taming of the Shrew. The man loved his Shakespeare. So he ended up, like any serious actor, he ended up going to New York and getting work off Broadway and on Broadway, and did a little television in the early 50s, a lot of westerns, Zane Grey Theater, Gunsmoke, Wagon Train. He ended up getting a contract with Columbia Pictures and did his first movie, Desire Under the Elms. And in 1959, he did a movie called Ride Lonesome with Randall Scott, where he absolutely stole that movie from Randall Scott. You can watch it on YouTube. It's very good. That is where he caught the eye of David Dortort, and indeed, in 1959, Pernell Roberts got the part of the eldest son, the erudite, the university-educated architectural engineer, poet, singer, guitar-playing, Renaissance man, oxymoronic Adam Cartwright. Oh boy, here we go. So Pernell had issues from, he said, working on Bonanza was a miserable experience, and that him working on Bonanza was like Isaac Stern sitting in with Lawrence Welk. Ouch. But he had his reasons, and I'll tell you the reasons why. He was 31 when he started Bonanza, and he didn't like the fact that a 31-year-old man was living at home with Daddy and had to ask Daddy if he could do this or that. He didn't like wearing the same clothes every day. Not sure he was crazy about wearing a hairpiece. He didn't like the product, didn't like the lunch boxes and the memorabilia, little pins, and he didn't like doing Chevrolet commercials in character. He didn't like the compromise. He didn't like white people playing Native Americans and Asians. And as a matter of fact, in his personal life, he would participated in the walk from Selma to Montgomery. There he is with his wife. And he participated in a lot of civil rights activism during that time. I have my own theory. He was 31 years old, like I said, and that was prime time. That was leading man prime time, the early 30s. And on the lot, he saw Steve McQueen and Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood, who were all in the same situation that Pernell was in, move to movies. And he couldn't. Pernell was locked into a 5-year contract. Lauren Green said he didn't think Bonanza was going to last 3 months, and I think Pernell thought the same thing. So he was locked in as Adam Cartwright, but he had such amazing scope in that part. I mean, he was so funny and sarcastic and cutting. He had some amazing one-liners. You know, anything from the Burma Rarity to Hay Burner to Bank Run. And then on the other side of it, he could just make you weep. He was in The Dark Gate with James Coburn, who he starred with in Ride Lonesome, another guy who made it to the movies, and his finest hour with Lee Marvin in The Crucible. That last scene of The Crucible is iconic, historic to the fandom, and it is heart-wrenching. So he offered to play Adam part-time, come back in and out of the show occasionally so he could do other things. And the producer said no. And Pernell said, fine, see ya. I'm out of here. During the Bonanza time, though, he did record an album called Come All Ye Fine and Tender Ladies, which I still listen to today. It's a folk album. Pernell had a fantastic baritone voice, just beautiful. So when he left Bonanza, he was 37 years old. So that prime time of his career was gone and locked up, all in the time of Bonanza. But he did tons of television work over the next 15 years, no less than 60 television spots, anything from the streets of San Francisco to The Odd Couple to Hawaii Five-0, Mission Impossible. He was everywhere. And he was able to do a lot of theater, too, which he loved. He did The Music Man and Camelot and Carousel and The King and I. So he got that variety and he got that freedom that he wanted. But when he turned 50 in 1978, he said, you know what, I'm going to need some bread. I'm getting older. He'd never cared about money before. He'd never cared about fame. I mean, the guys on the Bonanza were making millions of dollars. He could have cared less. That was not his priority. His priority was the work. So when he thought, I'm getting older and I'm going to need to pay some bills, he thought, I'm going to get another series. So he got another series as Trapper John McIntyre on Trapper John MD, which I believe ran for 7 seasons. So he got the security he wanted, and good for him. I mean, there comes a time when you got to take care of yourself. And he did another series after that called FBI, The Untold Stories, sort of a narrator, host of that show. But he is still tied to Bonanza. He was the longest living original cast member. I'm paraphrasing here, but after Michael died, I think he said something like, I'll ever be known as Pernell Last Man Standing Roberts. So he's very tied with the show, even though he only did 202 episodes of the 431 and had divorced himself way back in 1966. There were 7 more years of Bonanza. But he, even in the fandoms today and all the social media, that show is about a man and his 3 sons, and that's it. He is part of that show, full stop. And he was very fond of his fellow cast members. I mean, it sure looked like they had a lot of fun. Plus, he got to ride horses every day. But he ended up, paying his respects and going to Dan's funeral and Lauren's funeral and Mike's funeral. And he ended up paying for Victor Sen Young's funeral, who played Hop Sing. So that was in the 90s. So he was very, very, very tied to that show, whether he liked it or not. He had one son, Christopher, who passed. Here's Christopher. They played some music together on the Mike Douglas show. Who unfortunately passed away in 1989 in a motorcycle accident, which must have been absolutely devastating to Pernell. So his legacy will be the work, and it will be Adam Cartwright, whether he likes it or not. I mean, we loved him, but that will be his legacy, Bonanza and Adam Cartwright. So Pernell passed away January 24th, 2010. Of pancreatic cancer in Malibu, California. For me, he was my favorite. I could watch Pernell Roberts sitting in a corner reading a book. That's how charismatic he was. As always, you can look up his entire resume of almost 50 years on Internet Movie Database. And I'm going to sign off with a little quote from Woman of Fire. I'm going to get into character here. Don't lose your temper so early in the morning. You won't have anything left for the rest of the day. See you next time.